I would like to announce Mr. Cameron Purdy to come up and give us the next presentation.
I don't skateboard. So why did I do my Masterworks on skateboarding? Well, I find the culture and history of it fascinating. Hi, my name is Cameron Purdy, and welcome to my Masterworks entitled The History of Skateboarding. My advisor, Alan Harrison, was a professional skateboarder in the 1980s. He told me that he and his friends used to ride down a multiple-storied parking lot. Sometimes they were caught and kicked out, but he said that was one of the thrills of skateboarding. Being anti-establishment and rebellious towards society was entertaining and new. The thrill Harrison described has fueled what has become an international sport and a cultural phenomenon. In this presentation, I will explore the history and the development of skateboarding culture over the years. In the beginning, skateboarding was mainly influenced by the sport of surfing. Similar to surfing, skateboarding consists of riding a board, and in this case, mainly on paved or concrete surfaces. Both sports consist of riding a board of different shapes and sizes. Both sports focus on understanding and using surroundings to their advantage. Like surfing, skateboarding has grown in popularity incredibly fast, and it doesn't look like it's stopping anytime soon. Of all the sports in the world, skateboarding makes its mark among the top 10 most popular sports, despite being only a little over 60 years old. Although the sport is fairly new, skateboarding already has a rich and varied history. Skateboarding has been seen as a criminal activity by some, and has contributed to major changes in society, such as clothing and styles of speech. For many, skateboarding has become more than a sport, it's become a way of life. There are many styles of skateboards. Some skateboards are styled after longboard surfboards. While these skateboards aren't intended or made for tricks, longboards are great for riding down hills and carving while you cruise the streets. The other main type of skateboards are intended for trick skating and are known as shortboards. These skateboards are shorter and allow the skater to change foot position much quicker to do tricks such as ollies and kickflips. A traditional shortboard consists of a deck, grip tape, trucks, wheels, and bearings. The skate deck is the mainly flat part of the board that you stand on when skateboarding. Modern shortboard decks vary in size, but most are 7 to 10 inches wide and 28 to 33 inches long. The next part of the skateboard is the grip tape. Grip tape is a sheet of paper or fabric with a sticky part on one side and a surface that is similar to sandpaper on the other. Grip tape is applied to the top of the board to help the skater grip his feet to the board. On the bottom of the skateboard are the trucks. Each skateboard has 2 metal trucks on it with urethane bushings. Urethane bushings are the things in the truck that allow the board to turn. The orange piece in the middle of it. Trucks are what connect the wheels to the deck. Another part of the skateboard are the wheels. Today's skateboard wheels are usually made from polyurethane, but early skateboard wheels were made from clay or metal and had minimal traction compared to the wheels used today. Shortboards usually use smaller and harder wheels to keep the board closer to the ground and require less power to accelerate. The opposite to these street skating wheels are longboard wheels, which are larger and softer for a much smoother ride. The last part of the board are the bearings. Now, these are the same things you see in your fidget spinners. so grade 8s, you'd probably know a lot about these. Skateboard bearings are the round metal pieces that fit inside the wheels to go on the axle of the trucks. These are all the main components of the skateboard. So, how did something so revolutionary get started? It's unknown who first invented the skateboard, but we know it was during the early 50s. The first manufactured skateboards were ordered by a Los Angeles surf shop owned by Bill Richard. The sole purpose of these original skateboards was for surfers to practice their turns while the ocean waves were flat. This was first called sidewalk surfing. Not really much happened in the 50s, but in the 60s, skateboarding was getting more and more popular. Many people who didn't even surf started to skateboard. 1960s. This was the first big wave of skateboarding, and it had a lot to do with the big drought in California. Strict water regulations meant that people couldn't fill their swimming pools, so there are many empty swimming pools around. Skateboarders saw an opportunity in this situation and decided to skateboard in them. Sometimes a friend would have a pool and invite people over to skate in it, but often skaters would trespass into other people's swimming pools and would skateboard in them until the police were called or the owner of the pool got home. The thrill of trespassing was no doubt part of the attraction of skateboarding for many young skaters. As the popularity of skateboarding grew, a small number of surfboard companies started to make better quality skateboards with clay wheels instead of metal ones. Around 1962, skateboarding suddenly hit a low point, and people started to think it was just a phase. Now we're into the 70s. This low point ended for good when in the 1970s, Frank Nasworthy invented the urethane skateboard wheel. Suddenly, there was a lot of new skateboarding possibilities. Before, skateboarding was noisy, bumpy, with the metal and clay wheels, but the new urethane wheels rode smoothly and quietly. Banks, walls, and ditches were now able to be skated. These new wheels could grip to the concrete. In the late 70s, the famous trick called the ollie was invented by Alan Ollie Gelfand. The ollie was very important to skateboarding as it has become a fundamental and the basis for many other tricks today. Here's a video of an ollie. There was a new spark created when later in the 70s, there was a team of young professional skateboarders called the Z-Boys or the Zephyr Team. Their competition team started up in 1975 from Santa Monica and Venice, California. They are credited with developing the aerial style of skateboarding with tricks like ollies, pop shove-its, and 180s that are still popular in skateboarding today. The Zephyr Team started skateboarding as something to do after surfing. For them, style was the most important part. The team rode their skateboards as if they were riding their surfboards, riding the concrete like they were riding a wave by dragging a hand along the ground. During the big California drought in the 1970s, the Z-Boys were among those who would sneak into people's empty swimming pools and skate in them. The Z-Boys would look for a variety of pools to ride in, since not all pools are the same. So now I'm going to show you the trailer of the Dogtown and Z-Boys documentary.
Before extreme sports, before the X Games, before it all, there was Dogtown and Z-Boys.
This is not the beach that people came to vacation at.
This is the last great seaside slum that was paradise.
You didn't go near that place if you didn't live there and know the people because you didn't get hurt.
Surfing was it, and skateboarding was just an extension of our surfing.
People thought this was some like stupid thing that little kids did.
The Zephyr Team was the most influential skateboard team ever.
No one was aggressive or as radical as they ever were.
We were being paid like skateboards. It was crazy.
The Zephyr Team really sparked a revolution.
Once cool riding came in, that's like all that we did to
Goes up, pulls the board up, turns in the air, comes back down into the pool, and makes it just changed the whole ball game.
Dogtown to get to go to Hollywood parties and get to hang out with rock stars and party in people's backyards and skate empty swimming pools. I'm in. By doing something that everyone said was a waste of time, it ended up influencing kids all around the world.
There would be any X Games if it wasn't for most of the boys that I skated with and competed against.
It was unreal.
Dogtown and Z-Boys.
So I hope you get a good understanding of what skateboarding was like back then. In 1975, the Z-Boys entered the Del Mar Nationals, skateboard competition held in California. They entered in the freestyle competition. However, with their aggressive style was appreciated by the crowd, it didn't please the judges since freestyle was traditionally a more graceful performance. Nevertheless, the Z-Boys' popularity took off after the tournament. Sadly, a few short months after the Del Mar Nationals, the Zephyr Team was dissolved by the troubles that can accompany with fame and popularity. Bigger skateboard companies wanted to use the team's popularity, offering the skateboarders money that Jeff Ho, the founder of the Z-Boys, couldn't compete with. The Jeff Ho and Zephyr Surfboard production shop closed down shortly after. Now we move into the 1980s. It was in the 1980s that skateboarding really solidified its bad reputation that is still around today. This came from the Z-Boys and their dismissive attitude to the rules of society. It's not surprising that skateboarding has a bad name. Many people have thought of skaters as petty criminals. The icon of the 80s was a bad boy skater. A few bad apples got the attention, such as members of the Z-Boys, because they stood out to people with their new style while winning major competitions. Skateboarders had an anti-establishment reputation, meaning that it's not fully accepted in society. One of the reasons for the bad attitude skaters got from the 1980s was the relation with skateboarding and punk rock. The punk rock relation with skateboarding got a bad reputation and from the negative wave of music and the way they started to dress. The rebel mixed with the activity of skateboarding and the idea stuck. Also, skateboarding can often damage property. Skateboarding leaves a mark on property such as grind marks on benches or hand railings. During the 1980s, skateboard companies owned by skateboarders started showing up, such as Powell Peralta. This enabled each company to be creative and do whatever they wanted, so new styles and shapes of boards were tried. At this time, graphics became very popular on skateboards, and skateboards came in various shapes and sizes. During this time, many people also had VCRs. To capitalize on this technology, Stacy Peralta and George Powell made films with a team of young skaters called the Bones Brigade. The main effect of broadcasting these skaters was that skateboarding expanded worldwide, growing popularity from all across the world. Sadly, by the end of the 80s, skateboarding started to lose popularity again. The very popular vert style of skateboarding was losing popularity. Vert is the style of skateboarding on skate ramps, empty swimming pools, or other structures that involve a steep incline. The loss of popularity in skateboarding had huge impacts on professional skateboarders. Skateboarders who only skated vert, like Tony Hawk, the most influential skateboarder of all time, had a very difficult time holding on through the late 1980s and early 1990s. In the 1990s, skateboarding yet again had another wave of popularity. This was thought to have come from the television broadcast of the first Extreme Games, which is a competition of extreme sports such as surfing, snowboarding, and more. Public opinion started to change as well. Skateboarding was starting to be broadcasted more. And the skateboard competition in 1996, the Extreme Games, was watched by millions around the world. In 1997, skateboarding was featured in the Winter X Games. Skateboarding was no longer just a North American sport, but a worldwide sensation, promoted by the media and well known by much of the world. The 2000s brought the development of the style of street skateboarding that is most similar to the skateboarding scene today. In the 1970s, skateboarding was frowned upon by the public, but today, parents encourage their kids to go to the skate park. New non-traditional physical education skateboarding programs are becoming popular. Now we will look at the skateboarding market. Today's skateboarding market has become one of the biggest businesses of the decade, with skateboarding being a $4.8 billion market. As stated previously, people who don't even skateboard wear clothes made for skateboarding, probably because it still holds a counterculture look that people find cool. Now, a lot of today's fashion comes from skateboarders in the 1990s on the East Coast. If you look at most streetwear brands today, you'll notice that they've picked up on 5-panel hats, baggy jeans or sweatpants, or high-top skate shoes. There's a good chance these common brands were influenced by skateboarders influenced by East Coast skateboarders of the 1990s. Today's skateboard apparel like Stussy, Obey, Palace, and Supreme garnering most of the attention at the moment. This is one of the last things skateboarders expected to happen, and many skateboarders are unhappy with the way skateboard brands are being worn by people who don't even skateboard, often calling them posers. All these skateboard brands are becoming extremely popular, as Supreme is selling out every time a new article of clothing comes out, sometimes within seconds, resulting in people buying these clothes and reselling them for prices greatly inflated, sometimes reaching over $1,000 for just a hoodie or t-shirt. Since skateboard apparel is very popular, and Supreme and other more expensive skate brands are becoming very fashionable, Supreme decided to do a collaboration with the designer brand Louis Vuitton. The collection's reported high price tags have left Supreme's original fan base of skaters unhappy, with many exclaiming they feel exploited in seeing their favorite clothes fed through the luxury assemble line. This is an example of how skateboarding has blended into mainstream society today. Perhaps a reason for the rapidly growing popularity of the sport lies in the fact that skateboarders are free to skate how they want and do tricks when they want. It's an independent sport without rules, and the free-thinking mentality attracts creative people. To conclude, even though skateboarding is still somewhat anti-establishment, it is definitely part of today's society. Skateboarding's overall view from the public is getting better every day. As skateboarders are becoming less anti-establishment, the process is being slowed down because it's difficult to have a quiet day in the park when people are skateboarding everywhere. Skateboarding is a very important part of today's world, affecting our clothing, transportation, and youth of today. While skateboarding has been around for less than a century, it already has millions of participants. My uncle, Alan Harrison, skateboarded in the 1970s. And he still skateboards today, even riding to work on his electric skateboard. This shows that skateboarding is not just a phase, but an important part of people's lives. Skateboarding is a revolutionary sport that is different than most. That is what makes it so important. The fact that it isn't something you leave on the field, rink, or court, but something you live with all around you. I'd like to thank my advisors, Adrienne Van Lithitude, for helping me with my essay and my presentation, and Alan Harrison for inspiring me on the topic and telling me stories of what skateboarding was like in the old days. And last but not least, I'd like to thank my parents for delivering me snacks while I was working on Masterworks. Thanks for watching.
I am very pleased that Cameron Purdy has met all the requirements of the Masterworks program of 2017. You can say thank you.